Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Angela Jean Rosehart. It is a beautiful, getting to be summery day in Sedona, Arizona, and I'm here with Amalia, a dear medicine woman, sister, and friend. And we are going to be speaking about her latest book, Earth Spirit Wisdom, Transmissions of Earth Spirit Wisdom, a shamanic way of seeing, being, and healing. It's a beautiful book that I've been reading every morning or evening to either have a lovely grounded way to start the day or something kind of calming and relaxing and insightful to go to bed with. So I invite you all to join us as we speak as a group here into our lovely world from Amalia's heart. Welcome, Amalia.
Thank you so much, Angela. And nice to see everybody. Thank you for being here. This is the third week of the book club, and as a lot of you may already know, that I am a psycho-shamanic healer here in Sedona, and so the years and years of being firstly a naturopath doctor, a holistic naturopath doctor in Australia, and then a psycho-shamanic practitioner healer, a lot of the wisdom that has come through in this book, as we saw, Earth Spirit Wisdom, has come through connecting with Mother Earth and being her spokesperson, a secretary. My first book, Spirit of the Stones, was definitely being a secretary for the earth and just listening to the messages of the stone beings and writing them down. And that's the first book. But this book here has come along in the silence of God's space. I guess I would call it God's space. I don't want to say guess, but it is God's space in meditation or in absolute quietude in the silence. These allegories and these deep wisdom messages had come through, even if it was a sentence that struck me so entirely that I had to stop and write them down in the middle of meditation or in a session. I would definitely stop in a session even. I mean, this is something I would never do ever, but that was so profound that I had to stop and say, just please, one moment, let me write this down. And then I felt like it was a transmission that had to come through to the people, not just for me or that person, even though it would be enough for one person, but they were so profound. So I've written them in short little blog kind of chapters. And each little blog chapter I call an excerpt has an activation. And so today, I don't know if any of you, I know two of you have the book, but Nutopia, you don't have the book, correct? Okay, no worries. I'm gonna read some now, but Angela and Charles, would it be okay if you wanted to read as well? Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay, so today we're going to cover two excerpts of this book that I love myself, I have to say. And each book has its own personality, can you believe? It really, really does. It's like a child. And I have not been a mother in the figurative sense as a maternal physical mother, but I have been a mother to the world. I have been a mother to the universe. I have been a cosmic mother energy, and now I'm a mother to these two books. So let us begin. And we're going to start on page 29. And this is called Blessed Be in the Greater Hive. I think you may already get an idea of what I'm going to be speaking about. Blessed be. Be as in the insect.
I just read this. I just got to this. This was just recent, so I'm excited.
Okay, great. All right. So I'm going to start here and we'll begin. I believe we can learn a lot from the bees in making a shift from survival to thrival. From crawling aimlessly, estranged and disconnected, to moving in a synthesis of union for the greatest good of all. Up until this point, for the most part, humanity continues its undertakings single-handedly, like ants who carry a huge load on their backs one by one, soldiering on painstakingly. It seems to take an overriding crisis in our lives to join our efforts to work as one unit, to give our helping hands to each other. The 9/11 bombing of the Twin Towers in New York City was a good demonstration of how catastrophes can jolt us out of our self-seeking and self-centered dispositions. It is through such promptings that we often pool our efforts together to clean up the debris, feed those who are hungry, clothe those who are cold, pray for those in need, and behave as one hive, as the bees have illustrated for millions of years. Charles, can you do the next 2 chapters?
For 130 million years, bees, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Bees, one of the earliest known insects on our planet, have adapted and evolved into a highly intelligent and organized society. Up to 80,000 bees work together as one superorganism, one moving unit. Each has their specific tasks and roles in the colony as either worker bees, guard bees, nurse bees, drone bees, cleaner bees, forager bees, undertaker bees, builder bees, temperature controllers, and of course, the queen bee, who produces up to 2,000 eggs per day. She is the matriarch, the central figure of the matrix from which the hive revolves. Not only do bees cross-pollinate to fertilize our flora, but they also produce honey that supplies us with a myriad of nutrients rich in vitamins, proteins, and minerals, along with the delight of its sweetness. The bee's venom has throughout history been used in apitherapy, bee sting therapy, for its powerful medicinal properties that range from reducing inflammation to treating chronic illnesses. Bees also provide us with a regional working template for a progressive future, all working together for the survival and thrival of the whole. When honeybees build their comb, they work in teams and employ a festooning process whereby they literally span across a broad area by linking to each other's legs, establishing a long line to form a bridge. Trees also employ a similar process in communicating their needs by sending each other necessary nutrients via a network of latticed fungi deep in the soil. Their deep roots extend to each other and in effect hold hands, like bees, to create a bridge of communication and support for each other's growth.
Angela, thanks.
Mother Earth is our queen bee, our greater mother who serves and continually provides for us so that we are nourished in the greater hive. As we sit around the circle and suppose, the truth sits in the center and knows. This is a wonderful quote by an unknown author, evoking the metaphor that humanity points the finger at everyone else in the circle, blaming and shaming, scamming, and while the is in truth at the center of generating consistently and quietly the thrum and thrive of the greater hive.
Angela, just a moment.
Please.
We lost you for a moment there. I want to reiterate that quote because it's so powerful. I heard this quote in Hawaii, and I don't know who it's from, but it really struck me. I'm just going to read this quote again. As we sit around the circle and suppose, the truth sits in the center and knows. You want to read till the end of that chapter again after that? And knows.
This is a wonderful quote by an unknown author, evoking the metaphor that humanity points the finger at everyone else in the circle, blaming and shaming, scamming and cramming, while the Earth Mother is in truth at the center of the matrix, generating consistently and quietly the thrum and thrive of the greater hive.
Are you following along, Utopia? Are you able to hear this easily enough?
Very much so. Yes. Thank you.
You want to do one more paragraph and then I'll do the rest. Angela?
We could employ the template of how the bees work diligently and selflessly to create the perfect environment to ensure that Queen Bee, Mother Earth, has all she needs to do her job well, to ensure that future generations of the greater hive are secured. The fabric of our society is torn and frayed. We have scrambled and spun our wheels incessantly to get ahead or do better than our neighbors at each other's expense. We are not pooling our resources together and working as one unit.
Bees show us how to move as one organism, one mind, one intelligent society. We need not strive to get ahead, but to get on with it. This does not mean that we lose face of our unique abilities, for we can each show up with our specialty, our mastery, just like the bees do, to add to the value of each other's lives and the greater whole. We can show up for the greater good of all, to ensure that we enjoy the privilege of a life everlasting. The sweet taste of honey, the nectar of life, can be savored from one generation to the next. Here is an excerpt on bees from my first book, Spirit of the Stones, from chapter 7. It's called The Yucatan Transmissions. This is from another book, my first book. Bees work for the royal one, the queen. Many bees build their hives as a temple for the queen in which to preserve the heritage of the royal lineage and in guardianship of the inherent knowledge. Bees work incessantly for the silent one at the center, who has the instinct to keep the state of affairs balanced and amenable to the gods. The hive is a template of the Mayan kingdoms, where many busy workers constructed temples of worship for their royal kings and queens, high priests, priestesses, and lords. These were places from which the highest, clearest communications from the gods were heard and then put into service for the people and their lands. The work of the bees here continues, anchoring the game plan, the regional working template for a progressive future. So just close the eyes for a moment, please, everybody. And taking a deep breath together, inhaling in through the nose and exhaling with mouth open. Just let go down, let the breath go down. Yes, lovely. And again, just see if we can bring ourselves into the hive consciousness for a minute. And even perhaps hear the bees buzzing. How they thrum and buzz together. They create a trance-like state. Deep breath in. Exhale, let go. I'm going to read the activation for contemplation. How can you employ the festooning process of holding hands with others to create a bridge of success for all involved? In which way can you serve the greater good? What unique quality do you hold at the center of your inner self that could be shared with a greater hive? So I'd like to hear from you each if you'd like to share. I have to still say that when I read this, I get fulfilled myself. I do. And it is restful. Some people have said it's very restful to read this, and I do find it's relaxing myself. So I'd like to hear from any of you, if you'd like to share what you felt about the excerpt and some of the questions asked, and we can repeat them if you want.
Well, I'll say something.
Yes, please.
It reminds me of different forms of power, political power, if you look at it from a human point of view. Like, is it monarchy that makes everyone work together? Is it, then you run the risk of totalitarianism and a system where people get oppressed. We live in a democratic society, at least in theory, And people like that because they don't have to have the monarchy model.
Mhm.
So, I think it's important and I like it. I think in the goddess tradition, it was a monarchy of, the queen. And everybody was happy under that because they felt liberated. But when you get the male kings, you run the risk of it not being a happy situation. And of course, women can be that as well.
Yes, yes.
So I think that's where we're misguided right now, is we don't know what kind of political power we need to make us work as one organism.
That's why I thank you very much. It's a really nice angle on another level of angle to look at this from, and I really appreciate. That's why I love this book club, because everyone has their angle to offer. But that's why I mentioned the Earth as the central matrix, and not so much a human being, but the overall template of working together as one organism. But I like what you're saying, because it's true. Even the queen, in the way that she has functioned, isn't necessarily benevolent for all. So, you know,
Mhm.
I like the template version of the greater hive buzzing as one unit, as a humanity together. And yes, we run the risk. And fortunately for the bees, I don't hear them complaining and creating a fuss about the queen being the one in the middle. I don't hear the language, but I don't think that nature has that kind of quarrel going on. What do you think? Do you agree?
I thought of something similar when I was reading this. I think the problem is just the
Can
use
you
of the
speak
word
a little
queen.
louder?
I thought of something similar when I was reading this. And I think the problem is the use of the word queen. Queen has a lot of human annotations, and in human
Right.
society, a queen might be somebody that orders everybody else what to do. It seems like what happens in a bee colony is the queen has a role to play, and she's not ordering everyone what to do. It's like a symbiosis. She has a role to play, just like the worker bees, just like all the other bees. And instead of it being her telling other people what to do, it's naturally everyone knows their role. It's
Yes,
not like they're being told.
that's
And I
right.
think that's the
Beautiful.
difference. And maybe that's the problem with the way human politics work is that it's forced. Somebody is forcing somebody else to do things, rather if it's coming from a place of natural, like if you just see what is your natural role to be, and you are that, you're not being told to be that. So maybe it's the difference between natural order and human order.
Yes, beautiful. Thank you. And that helped, that rides along with what Newtopia was saying, was offering to us, bringing that ideology in about the politics is a good idea, and then taking it a step down from that into the simplicity of nature. And that, yes, and actual fact, the queen bee really just stays in the hive really until she swoons. So she's sitting there just laying eggs. I don't know how fun that would be. I mean, at least the drones and the worker bees are out there with the flowers. I think I would rather be working. I think I'd rather be out there in the sunlight than in the dark hive, constantly laying eggs. So, you know,
Almost
it's
almost captive, being held
almost
captive by
captive.
the
Yeah,
person that's escaping,
yeah.
right?
And I know Rudolf Steiner
Mhm.
was saying that um, the queen holds the sun energy. She holds the light of the sun because she's connected to the sun. All the bees, when they fly, they have the bee's eyes are hexagonal. I don't know if you knew that, but the cells of the bee's eyes are hexagonal, just like the hives that they build. And
Hmm.
they see through hexagonal cells. And I learnt this when I was snorkeling in Hawaii with the dolphins, that the only way I could know exactly where I was going in the direction I needed to go was where the sun was hitting on the lens of the snorkel. And so it's kind of like that's how the bees fly. They know what angle they need to stay on, what course they need to stay on what angle, because of the sun. They're very, very, they're sun beings. They're sun beings. And when the queen moves from the hive, I was going to say flies from the coop, but that's a chicken term. But when she flies from the hive what do you call it? Swooning? Is it called swooning? The bees, when they swarming.
Warm.
Swarm, that's right. When the queen bee flies, the drones have to fly up to her. She can fly higher than the drones. She's a strong flyer. She flies close to the sun. According to Rudolf Steiner, the drones, only the strongest drones can meet her and mate with her, and then they basically they're carrying her seed, her eggs. But not all of them make it, you know. It's like the queen, the most powerful woman. Not everyone's going to be able to be with her. Anyway,
I would love to say something.
yes,
So,
please, Angela.
interestingly, several of my dearest sisters are shamanists, sacred beekeepers, and they this is all they do, you know, as the center of their livelihood is to share beekeeping. And I know this much, but I've found that most of us haven't been taught about this. And it's so incredible. It's actually so moving, the bees and how they work, that because I was at a conference and I was so moved, I just went up to my dear friend and I was just bawling, and she just held me and she says, I know, isn't it amazing? I was just so incredibly inspired by the bee worlds, because we generally are not taught about what they do. But yeah, it's amazing, because both of you, I feel like I was going to share something in a way about this, is that the queen's job is to make sure that the hive continues on. That's her job. And the bees change their hum all the time, almost like a little jukebox, to keep the bees agitated and excited, and even have a different dance for different songs they've found. And they call it the waggle dance. And so there's like ecstatic dance, bee style, and there's all these different community activities that they do, which you spoke about in here. Like they'll join twigs in such a way to create the hive, and it's gorgeous. I mean, simply stunning. And then the males have a role, the drones have a role, the worker bees are both male and female. In the winter, there's more drone boy bees because they keep the hive warm.
Mm-hmm.
And so the whole thing works as absolutely synergistic. They need to have each other to survive.
Absolutely, like a body, like our body,
Yes.
like an organ.
Yes.
Yeah.
Gonna make that.
And they each have a job, including feeding the babies, including the natural order of creating more queen bees, because they'll create a queen hive. I mean, it's so fascinating and it's so inspiring. And I wish we could live like the bees.
This is why. Thank you, Angela. Thanks you for the extra information about that. And also, this is why I'm very passionate about bees. Actually, I don't know if you know this, any of you, but you know, many people have adopted or feel connected to a particular spirit animal as part of their shamanic journey, in learning from that animal, following that animal, embodying the essence of that animal. My highest totem is the bee. And that's
Got that impression first book.
What's that?
I got that impression from your first book.
Yes. And in the first book, where I would go to nature and say, okay, where do you want me, Mother Earth? Where do you want me? And I would put my hand out like this in like a radar and go boom. And I have to trust that. I'm not there to double guess Mother Earth's directive. So I would go there, and what would be above my head but a beehive? Often, as you read this in my first book, Charles, Spirit of the Stones. So, and but also I did study with some bee masters in Hawaii, and the thrum and the trance-like state. It's very, very entrancing, and that sound therapy actually heals the cells of our body, and I believe it really does have a regenerative effect, just like honey does. Honey has that ability to strengthen our immune system and also at the same time bring pleasure to our taste buds. And you know, the Egyptians used honey for embalming, to preserve. And I'm sure the queens and pharaohesses, priestesses and pharaohs and queens, that the queens were using honey and milk in their bath. So anyway, anything else we want to say about this particular piece?
There's a lot. You know, when I read this, I felt like we could spend hours. You know, you can't hear me too well. I don't know. There's a lot in this. It's really dense. There's a lot I feel like we could talk for hours about it. But I saw a lot of double meanings in here with your words. Like even the title itself, when you say "blessed be," you know, I come from a Catholic background, and the first thing I thought of is they say "blessed be the name of the Lord." You know, that's a common phrase. So the way you started it just triggered a lot of the, you know, Catholic imagery. And then to be, you know, to be as in being, you know, existence. And so I thought a lot of when you say a be, to just be is another, you know, sort of, there's like woven, I don't know what you call it, but a lot of different meanings in here, I think that
There is, you're right.
you could mine, you know.
Yeah, you're right. And I know you follow Krishnamurti very strongly. And I really love this quote, as we sit around the circle and suppose we might point at each other. Oh, look at that person and look what she's doing, look what he's doing, and blame and shame and whatever we're doing, assuming and presuming. The center of the circle, the center point of the circle is silent, is the silence. And so that doesn't need to the center of the silent being in the middle, not necessarily person, but the beingness in the middle of the swirl of the vortex in Sedona. You've got to be still in the center of the vortex of Sedona in order to not get caught up in the swirl and into the Maya, into the illusion of everything. So I find that's the reason I put that in there, is because the queen bee, for example, is just doing her work humbly. She's just doing her work humbly. And even though, you know, there might be other bees doing lots of other things around, she's holding the center matrix. So that's the idea.
I would like to say, I think the difference between humans and the bees, like what the role of the queen is the future. Like that's what the queen does, right? She's the one that is going to look after or have the babies. And I think in humans, it's like future studies, and that's what we fight over, unfortunately. Even though it's only going to be like one sustainable vision that's going to bring us all together.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if we go on all these different avenues trying to think this is the future when they're really not, then that's when we bring ourselves down. There's no unity.
Lovely. Yeah.
Lovely. The art, you know, hopefully is that unity.
I want to elaborate what you're saying, Newtopia, around the mother energy, the mother energy, not mother as in only matriarchal, but the greater mother energy, which is the reproducer, the giver, the nourisher, the nurturer of life. That's why I related this to Mother Earth energy. But with our society, with AI intelligence and very sort of regimented way of thinking, with split little time of this is time we have to do this, and this time we have to do this, and everything split up in TikTok moments. We forget the whole relaxing, encompassing version of the goddess. And how long was it? 323,000 years ago, there's a woman by the name of, I always forget her name, it's terrible of me to forget her name, but she was an archaeologist. And
Gambutus?
Yes, thank you. Tell me the name again?
Gambutus?
Yes,
she was Hungarian.
That's right.
Yeah.
Hungarian Gambutus, Dr. Gambutus, the archaeologist.
Yeah.
She found figurines of of goddesses that were really big and round and bulbous, not all sort of SEXY, sort of like the Donald Duck, version of a woman. It just goes
The
along.
Barbie,
The
the Barbie Botox.
No, these goddess figurines were bulbous and big and voluptuous and lifeful and, birth giving. So, anyway, I think we've done some good talking on this particular excerpt. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to take a sip of water. I don't know if you have any water with you.
Nope.
We're going to go now to the second excerpt called The Dance of Light and Shadow. I think I had it here somewhere, but I don't know where it is now. Let's see.
Page
Here
99.
it is. Dance of Light and Shadow. And this is page 99. And then I'll call on you both to read as well, but I'll just do a bit of reading first. Dance of Light and Shadow is in the spirit section. There's 3 sections in Utopia in the book. There's more the shamanic earth section, spirit as in spiritual ideas and a little bit more above place thinking. And then we have the wisdom, which is how to bring the two together into the heart section, into the heartfulness. All right, ready? Have you read this one, Angela, yet? Have you, Charles?
Yes, I have. Did my homework.
We are living in a dimension where not only time, space, and depth have strong roles to play in our reality, but contrast and duality play a strong part too. It is contrast that entrusts the dynamism of one from the other, as one polar rendition coexists with its opposite pole in order to support its entirety. Positive and negative, sun and moon, above and below, electric and magnetic are all superstars of this expression. For how can we know day without night, expansion without contraction, stillness without movement, and silence without sound? The two go hand in hand like 2 faces of the same coin. They belong together in holy matrimony, as does inhalation and exhalation, as does life and death. One is not better than or trying to outshine the other, but rather complements it in full respect for each to shine on the stage of life equally. We are versed in the knowledge that opposites attract and that the same poles on a magnet put together can repel each other, no matter how hard we try to connect them. But connecting opposite poles will, however, affix them with ungovernable force. The more the polarity, the more the magnetism. We have also applied this rule of thumb to the equation in our relationships, especially our significant others, in the maxim, opposites attract. It is most likely that we are magnetized and charmed by a partner who illustrates contrasting characteristics. This gives us an opportunity to learn from each other and to become more balanced within ourselves. However, we will struggle with the judgments that arise when our partner or family members are not acting in accordance with our wishes and would rather they display similar attributes and mannerisms like ourselves. If we could instead observe through the lens of curiosity, judgment would not supervene, and we may invite more wholeness into the entirety of the equation and into our lives. Angela, can you read 1, 2, 3 little paragraphs?
When we deem one polarity, one way, or one person as better than the other, with the added weight of judgment, separation is the result between the two, when all along they are really part of the same part and parcel. Why limit ourselves when we could embrace the totality and entirety of both? Here's the opportunity to broaden the container and expand the parameters where we can learn to become more accepting and patient with each other. There's been a misconception in many arenas of life that we must focus on the light and only the light. There must be pushback. That we must push back the darkness as it has no place here with us, lest it may taint and mar the purity of our virtueness. Cultural and racial prejudices have given us full visibility on this matter in a humanity that has had a painstaking history toward the propensity of the judgment of opposites, such as black and white, rich and poor. When we stand in the sunlight, a shadow is cast, reminding us once again that they coexist in mutual tolerance despite the differences. The stronger the source of light, the darker a shadow is produced.
Are you okay to read the next one paragraph, Charles?
So focus on the light as path to enlightenment.
So I can't hear you, Charles. We can't hear you.
Let me try. Can you hear me better this way?
Yes.
Okay. Nothing's working. I'm having my technology challenges tonight. When we insist on focusing on the light as an exclusive path to enlightenment, our shadow side will eventually be exposed and revealed. If we persistently push down into the depths of denial, the parts of us we have deemed not good enough and unacceptable, this shadow self hides in the darkest corridors of our psyche and from our own self. As we focus more and more on the light of consciousness will indeed shine right there in those hidden spots to bring them up and out, to be seen and brought back into acceptance. The more we deny the parts of ourselves.
I'll take it from here there, Charles. Yeah, thank you. The more we deny the parts of ourselves that we are uncomfortable with, such as the unworthiness, the shame or guilt, the further down we push them, creating more density and heaviness in the body. Eventually, our spirit becomes heavy as well. This density creates an energetic block that can obstruct the light from shining into and through our body, which in turn casts more of a shadow. As we insist on facing the light alone, we are limiting the capacity to heal into the wholeness of who we are. The hidden shadow needs to be embraced and accepted as part of the whole. How do we welcome the shadow with the light? The point of power is at the crux, at the fulcrum point between the two polarities. If we can stand at the center point without judgment and witness both sides as equally valid and divine as each other, we are at what I call the God point. We can thus stand as masters of self, not being moved off kilter to one side or the other. We can stand grounded between the two, riding the crest of the wave, standing at the fulcrum of the seesaw, in stillness and in freedom from this and that, in the balance point. This is the yoga of living in the union of the divine. One of my favorite quotes by Rowena Patty Crider in her book, Sacred Ground to Sacred Space is, dualities are opposite polarities of the same energetic force, which occur at the same pace to keep the universal energy in balance. I'm going to read that again. Dualities are opposite polarities of the same energetic force, which occur at the same pace to keep the universal energy in balance. I was struck by that so profoundly. It was like, oh my God, that's the answer to the universe. Even though light and shadow, this is coming back to me again here. Even though light and shadow appear as separate entities, each defines the other to add definition to the structure of all things. One polarity cannot exist without the other, as each has its perfect place in the totality of the greater design. Let's close the eyes. Take a few deep breaths. Just see what words or sentences stuck out more prominently than the others for us. See what kind of energy this excerpt may elicit in your body, in your soma. Perhaps see, maybe you when you were a child, you recognized and saw that the shadow of your own body followed you around when you're in the sunlight. No matter where you went, the shadow was right there with you. And here is the activation. We are invited not to judge one aspect of polarity as better than the other, but to learn to feel and intuit the space that joins them, to observe their play not from the mind, but from the heart, where the totality of the situation can be embraced in harmony and balance. Sit quietly and watch how your thoughts may want to push and pull away from each other. Take a step back to stand at the fulcrum of your awareness, to honor both as complements that can coexist and connect in greater harmony and union. Anybody have anything? I have a feeling, Charles, you may have something, but you may not at this point, but it feels like you would have something to say about this if I know you at all. Sorry, can't hear you, Charles.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, very well. Yes.
Oh, okay. I switched my mic. Oh man. Okay.
Okay,
Um,
perfect.
actually, what was really interesting, there was a lot of stuff like, you use a lot of sort of mathematical language in here, equations, and a lot of this is really related to, what I've studied a lot of my life with just physics and science. What's interesting is it's all the same thing. Like when you read that quote about, dualities or opposite polarities of the same energetic force.
Mhm.
I mean, it reads like a physics book, like that, those statements, but it also applies to us mentally,
Yes,
psychologically as well.
absolutely.
It's the same thing. And it really is that way. The way the universe, as much as we understand about it physically, everything is in balance. And in our mind, when we separate ourselves from these dark parts, but it's all us, it's like who is doing the separating? When we see the fear in us or the anger or hate and we judge it, it's we're separating ourselves and saying, I'm different from that anger, or I'm different from that. It's all in the same head. Like there is no difference. Like you are that, but we judge ourselves. And it's just kind of funny that we do that because it makes no sense at all. Because there's not two of us, it's like there's one of us. And so when you talked about the dualities, it makes perfect sense to me. In how things operate, but there is that tendency to form polarities, one end and the other end, and those two, like the front side of a coin, the back side of a coin, like you say, you can't have one without the other, so it's perfect balance.
Mhm. And if we were able to really observe both as equally valid and divine as each other, not as one is good and one is bad, like dark is bad and light is good, we're coming more from the God place, the totality place of observing the entirety. And I guess that's more of a heartful place, because the only place that can judge is the mind. The elbow doesn't judge, the hand doesn't judge, the nose doesn't judge, the heart doesn't judge, the body doesn't judge, the brain doesn't judge. The mind is what judges. The ego is more connected to the mind of man, not the body parts. So I think at the heart, it's almost like as well, the heart chakra is the center. It's the hub between the three top chakras and the three lower chakras. It's there at the center to hold the polarities in place, and with the masculine and feminine, the right side of us and the left side of us, the masculine, feminine brain and essence. Thanks, Charles. Yeah, I do see the equation part. I think it's a very easy, quick way of helping people understand some of those larger ideologies in simple equation format. That's why I put it like that, so people can see it as it is in front of them, rather than some sort of idea swirling around.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, Nutopia. The
Yeah,
hand is up.
yes, I will say, you know, one of the things that you said, focus on the light and only the light, is such a dangerous ideology.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to work, and but a lot of people have this, you know, and they'll say you're negative. Yeah, you know, if you bring up something that's not pleasant, and there's a lot of things that aren't pleasant, then it's like you're the negative one. And so it's almost like the cult of light.
Yes.
If you look at the universe, you know, if you look at the universe, only a small percentage are suns or stars. The rest is dark.
I like that. That's hilarious. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Well,
you know, we really do need that whole spectrum.
it's also very, if we're going to go into the equational aspect of this, the light is the yang and the yin is the dark. Yeah. And since, you know, post Moses, and when theology started to come in as a monotheology in one male entity as God, rather than the feminine goddess was kind of usurped along the way, and it became more of a monotheism around one man God, pretty much. And the light is the sun energy. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying the light is the sun. It's the penetrative sun that penetrates into the darkness. It's very male. It's very yang. And the feminine is the dark. It's the womb that is penetrated. The light comes into the dark to create life, or to create a movement. And so already this whole spiritual way of looking at things is very polarity based around, again, the male strata of the light is better. You know, it is, if we can apply the masculine and feminine to it, and the yin and yang, I would say that it's more of a male energy, the light. It's more of a Shiva consciousness. It's the crown chakra, and it's beautiful and it's wonderful. There's nothing wrong with it. It just can't function without the Shakti. It can't, which is the root chakra. It cannot function without that. The two together. And this is where I get very upset. My friends and people will know that I get very upset that religion has deemed Father God. But who in their right mind could ever think there's a Father God? Who could not think there must be a Mother God somewhere? If you're going to say Father God, where's the Mother God? No one thinks about this.
And look at the wars we have between these religions that are focused on this Father God, right? If you think of it that way, most of these religions are at each other's throats, you know, in some sense. You know, I mean, we're having these wars right now in the world between different religions who are these ones you're talking about, which maybe if they had more balance,
Yeah,
that wouldn't happen.
Yeah, that's right. Had more balance, regard for the feminine, regard for the mother energy, regard.
So I grew up very strong evangelical, strong fundamental, I would say, Christianity. So I didn't even have any concept and thought to ask where Mother God is. In fact, part of my awakening journey was, I mean, everything is right or wrong. You know, there's the 10 Commandments, and there's a clear, there's always a right and a wrong. That's black and white.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, And until I started working at a spa and I started learning about chakras and energy and essential oils and things, I had no concept. And one of our massage therapists said, I want to gift this to you for your birthday. And she gave me the Conversations with God on Audible, or on, Audible CDs. And so at the beginning of the book, it's the male voice, the almighty masculine God voice. And then it smoothly transitions into a feminine voice. And my body went like, what? And I will never forget it. As a part of my awakening was the idea and swap that there is a feminine aspect to God. And I'm not talking just Mary or feminine deities. I mean, the aspects of God I had always been taught was male.
Yes.
So when I do work with duality and polarity, which is a lot of what I do, I love what you said about cult of light, because it seems that was the beginning of my journey of awakening, if you will. 2008, 2009 was you can only be positive. You never feel any of the negative vibrations. And there was a frequency chart, and you were, don't feel any of the low vibrations, only feel the high ones. And that was kind of popular in like 2007 to 2011 or something. And I mean, that was part of my journey. But now I've learned that there is a massive amount of healing when you're in that lower, if you will, vibrational or the darkness.
Or
So essential to be in the feelings that we might consider low vibrational feelings of sadness or grief, and to really feel those feelings, because there's so much information. And I call them you're in the underbelly. You're finding those golden nuggets down there. Usually they're rarely on the surface. It's when you have to dig really deep down.
like the diamonds, right? The diamonds are found thousands of miles under the ground. That's the beautiful shining gems and crystals are found deep. And a diamond is formed, apparently, one of the ideas we know is that diamonds are formed in coal, although there is one of the excerpts in my book that it's a little bit of a misconception that they only grow in the dark coal. But I like what you said, Angela, about the lower chakras is where we they're more primitive emotions. This is where we feel more fear and shame, guilt, not enough, insecurity. That's the more, human emotions that are not deemed as spiritual. Spiritual is above and beyond that, but we're not going to go anywhere in ascension if we do not embrace the descension within us. There's nowhere going anywhere if we don't embrace the animal first before we go into the superhuman. This is how I see it. The seed of a plant or a tree or a bush or a fruit tree goes down into the soil. It's like we need to go down into the soil of consciousness, into the soil of our consciousness, into the fertilizer and all that shit that we've been sitting on is the fertile spot, as you were saying, Angela, down below in the underbelly, and I'm just very, very, I think I'm one of the people in Sedona that really hold that down here in Sedona. Otherwise, there's a lot of like, hi, everything's wonderful. But I love being here and I love everybody too. But I just wanted to share that. So thank you. Thank you for that. Our time is running now at a close. And I want to thank you, everybody, for coming to the book
Thank
club.
you.
Thank you. It's great to see you again, Utopia. Utopia interviewed me 20 years ago, was it? 20 years ago.
Maybe 15, maybe 15.
15 years ago, interviewed me for some interesting project that she was developing at the time. And this is the first time we come face to face in seeing each other after all those years. And she looks great.
Nice.
Yeah.
So we'll be here next week as well. If you want to tell any of your friends who might be interested in joining such a dialogue of sorts. And if anybody is listening to the replay, thank you for listening along with us and staying to this point at the end of the book club meeting. we are again on the 30th. I believe it's the 30th, is 1 week's time. So that'll be the last meeting of our book club. And you can purchase my book. It's called Transmissions. Oh, Transmissions of Earth Spirit Wisdom, and you can get it on Amazon. And yeah, have fun with it. Many blessings, everybody.
Great book.
Many, thank you. Thank you, Charles. Thank you, everybody.